प्रेजेंटेशन वाला यहाँ पे लगा है। Hello and welcome to you all. Good evening, friends, mentors, and fellow PR professional. I am Vicky Shah, Chairman, Public Relations Society of Ahmedabad Chapter. Today, we are all gathered here to listen to stalwart of our profession, Mr. Midan Bahal, in a very short while. Before that, it is my duty to brief you about PRSI, Public Relations Society of India, headquartered in Delhi. The Public Relations Society of India, the nation's association of PR practitioners, was established in 1958 to promote the recognition of public relations as a profession and encourage the integration of public relations as a strategic management function. The society functioned as an informal body till 1968 when it got formally registered. Today, the association has around 26 chapters across India, and I am happy to add that Ahmedabad was one of the very early chapters started in 1982. And today, we have more than 70 members of the society family. Many members of the chapter have assumed leadership roles in national body in the past and present as well. It is also my duty to, as a committee member of public relations, as a member of public relations society, and member of Ahmedabad Management Association, to introduce about that as well. I mean, to brief about Ahmedabad Management Association, established in 1956 by Dr. Vikram Sarabhai. AMA is committed to fostering knowledge sharing, profession growth, and networking opportunities within the business community. As one of the founding members of All India Management Association, AMA actively contributes to education profession initiative nationwide. Recognized 20 times as the best management association, AMA continues to host impactful events, seminars, conferences for industry professionals. Over the years, the baton of with this, I would request if any professional community communicator want to join the chapter, please get in touch with the office bearers later on. Now, with further ado, I invite our Vice Chairman, Mr. Santosh Jokarkar, to come and give a brief introduction of our speaker today. Thank you.
Good evening, friends. It's my privilege and honor to introduce Mr. Bahal to all of you. And before that, I request Mr. Bahal to grace the dais. Along with him, joining him are Gaurav Fadke and Rahul Ahuja. Sir, it's my privilege to have you here and introduce you. Our association goes almost 10-15 years now. I've known Mr. Bahal from distant quarters. Mr. Bahal is the co-founder and managing director of Ad Factors PR. Needless to say, India's largest and most recognized public relation firm. Founded in 1997, Ad Factors is also the youngest and the only independent firm in its peer group in India. Over the last 25 years, Mr. Bahal has had the privilege to serve as lead communication counsel in many of the milestone events of corporate India, including fundraisers, mergers and acquisitions, disputes, litigations, issues, and crises. In fact, he has been one of the most vocal advocates of the industry in India, and it's really our privilege to have him here. Ad Factors, the firm, currently serves over 600 retained clients, including many of India's leading conglomerates, unicorns, financial institutions, NGOs, corporations, to name some. In September 2022, the Arthur W. Page Society inducted Mr. Bahal into its Hall of Fame. Some of the prominent recognitions that he has received so far include International Communications Consultancy Organizations Hall of Fame, November 17, provokes Individual Outstanding Achievement in Asia Pacific, September 13, Communicator of the Decade by the Public Relations Council of India, PRCI, and the Lifetime Achievement Award by the Public Relations Society of India. I think we must give him a huge round of applause for this. In October 2020, Provoke recognized his firm, Adfactors, as one of the 7 global agencies of the decade. A vocal advocate of continuous learning and development for PR practitioners, Mr. Bahel is regarded for providing leadership to the Indian PR industry during major adverse events such as the global financial meltdown during 2008, the 2 years of COVID pandemic, and many more such occasions. Mr. Bahel is also a member of the Governing Council of the Yoga Institute, Mumbai, the world's oldest body of organized yoga teaching. He lives in Mumbai with his wife Dolly and sons Neil and Gautam. It's really honor and our privilege to have him here. And I request Nikhil Aboti to present a bouquet to Mr. Bahel. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Narayan Bhai and Vicky Shah and all the senior members of the fraternity here and all the younger members of the communication community, whether you're from the communication function in the corporation or from agencies, and several of my current and ex-colleagues from Adfactors here in the room. It's a privilege to be here. It's always fun to come to Ahmedabad because it's a very vibrant, forward-looking city of vibrant, forward-looking people. So I always find it a source of joy to come here. And I share that today as well, experience that today as well. The PRSI as a society has played an important role in the evolution of the public relations function over the last several decades. And the AMA itself is possibly the most vibrant, most active management association in the country. And I share something with the AMA. Both of us are born in the same year, 1956. So you can guess my age as well. I'm as old as this association. The topic that has been presented today, one is the IPOs and the second is trust and the impact of fake news on trust, so to say, are very pertinent topics. I have 2 of my younger colleagues and Gaurav Phadke, who is been with Adfactors for the last 5 years, but was an investment banker earlier with Nomura and Equirus. Very sound mind. And then we have another rock star called Rahul Ahuja, who is into the digital reputation space, and he deals with fake news and many other things related to reputation discovery in the digital world. And you'll be surprised to know that, as an introduction, I'm telling you that his team currently does not only include communicators or content writers or graphic designers. He has a full-time ex-policeman in the team who was in cyber security and cyber fraud and things like that. He has a full-time lawyer in the team to negotiate with Googles and Facebooks and the newspapers for any damaging content. He has fact checkers in the team. He has crime reporters in the team. So there's a very new kind of communication models that are coming up to deal with this animal called reputation in a world of fake news and anything that can be distorted so easily. So I will give a general context of why the importance of, particularly the first subject, IPOs, is there. We have a little qualification or eligibility to talk on this criteria. As a firm, we have been a market leader or a market leading firm for managing IPOs for the last 30 years. Since 1994, we have been a market leader every single year for the last 31 years in terms of the volume of funds mobilized or number of IPOs managed. Therefore, it's a privilege to have that kind of a trust of, of society as a whole, Indian society or the Indian business community as a whole, that for something as critical, uh, it's like in the family, IPO is like a first child born. You go to the best hospital, you go to the best doctor, you go to the best gynec. It is like that. So the trust that we enjoy is a great privilege that we have enjoyed in the Indian business ecosystem. That trust is extended to investment bankers who refer their business to us, or law firms who send to us, or the consultants who send it to us. So on the whole, it's a matter of some happiness. But something has dramatically changed in the last 5 years. We have already completed some 100 IPOs in the last first in this calendar year, which had not happened for a very, 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 very long time. And these are mainboard IPOs. These are not SMEs. SMEs are a few hundred. That only reflects that something fundamentally is changing about corporate India. Is it the economic growth of 6-7%? Well, that is one of the contributing factors. A robust economic growth of GDP will lead to this kind of an activity. But I think there are beyond that. That kind of growth happened even in the past, but we didn't have so many IPOs. Something fundamentally is changing. And one of the things that is not documented or reported is the change in the psyche of Indian family managed business, in the psychology of that business. Until 5 years ago, a typical business in Ahmedabad or Indore or Nagpur or even Bombay, which was family owned, would say, "Jada awaj mat karo." Even if you are very successful, you keep it quiet. At least don't let your success be. And there was fear in Bombay. The fear used to be कि भाई लोग आ जाएंगे पैसा मांगने के लिए. आते थे या इनकम टैक्स आ जाएगा. I think that fear has given way to a realization that the best way to unlock value and monetize a generation of a family's effort in business, hard work in business, is through the capital markets. And that psyche shift or shift that is happening in the thinking of the India is largely a family managed business thing. We have some public sector, but it is some public sector, 80-90 PSUs against 80-90,000 family managed businesses, small or big. So for every PSU, there are 1,000 family managed businesses. And this shift that is happening, that can we use our hard work as a currency in the capital market? Can we unlock value? Can we monetize value? Is becoming a significant factor in the surge of people coming to the capital market. There are other factors as well. The second factor would be that in most of the families, the second generation, which is fairly educated, they would be from Harvard or Stanford, it depends on the families, and or they would be even from the best universities in India, IITs and IIMs, or even regional engineering colleges. Many would have gone to London or somewhere else to study. They are coming back and creating a paradigm shift in the thinking of the family, that we want a brand, we want a corporate brand, we want a important thing. And therefore, that is also having a significant effect on the surge of IPOs. The second factor is that in India, maybe about 8 to 10,000 companies have been funded by private equity in the last 10 years. Hardly 50 may have gone public, or 100 may have gone public. Many of them may not have survived, but there are still few thousand companies which are PE funded, which will come to the market in the next 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. So you can expect this to be a very significant wave of people, companies tapping the capital market. So that trend is now fairly well established. The future can be predicted. That is supported by a common man's realization that the bank fixed deposit is not good enough for me because I get 6%, out of which the tax is 33%. And therefore, at least people who have invested wisely, and the mutual funds have maybe contributed to this, they have felt that they're getting a slightly better rate of return. So the household savings are getting diverted more and more here. Every year, every month, mutual funds collect several thousand crores in SIPs, which have to be invested somewhere. That is also contributing. So the broad point is, it's an important subject to discuss for communicators. And the relevance from a communicators, I will let the technique part of it go to Gaurav. He'll make a small presentation, and Rahul on the aspect of fake news and trust in a digital world. But from an individual's point of view, it has been my experience in 30 years that the corporate communications person who successfully delivers an IPO for the company definitely gets a promotion and a much larger hike. So we should get, of course, embrace the idea of our own businesses or companies going public. And I'm also finding that it becomes an important part of the CV when they apply for jobs. And many companies are now going public, so they're looking for communication people also internally who have taken an earlier company public, much like they look for a CFO or a company secretary or anything. So it's a good thing to do. In this part, Gaurav and Rahul will both discuss. Reputation has become a very important. I will not take the thunder away from what they have to say. So I will come back when the Q&A session comes. But in the meanwhile, I would like Gaurav to come and share his wisdom with you and his experiences with you. Gaurav.
Thank you, Madan sir. I've got very big shoes to fill, so I'm going to try and do justice to the responsibilities given me. I'm going to set some additional context in front of what Mr. Bahl has presented, because there are macroeconomic or societal shifts, but there are also some nuances in how investors look at IPO companies. Some of these you will see manifestations of in the media or in social media in terms of the scrutiny, the amount of divisive commentary, the amount of polarization that happens over valuation. Such commentary would have been inconceivable in, say, 2019, 2020, 2021. Increasingly, and due to many, many reasons, one of them is the popularity of Shark Tank. One of them is the explosion in demat accounts. Before the pandemic, we had 4 crores nationally. Today, we have 20 crores. So some of these things have contributed immensely to the equity investing culture in India. And today, suddenly, conversations about the retail investor and retail sentiment are extremely important in the context of an IPO book building and pricing discussion. And that is where the comms professional or the PR professional becomes a stakeholder in the room, a voice at the boardroom table, and is able to drive some value in terms of the business's valuation. So I want to take you through how we do that as PR and comms professionals, opportunities, and some challenges. For context, I think it's vital to understand what an IPO really represents for a company, because everybody sees it as a big festival, dhoom dhadaka, shosha ho raha hai. What is the real context of what changes for a business really? Before an IPO, like Mr. Bell said, the company may not be really be scrutinized by the media or go through trial by media. A very finite universe of stakeholders, vendor, supplier, चार और customer से बात कर लिया, काम खत्म हो गया. No external performance pressure. कोई की धंधा घर पे बैठ के आप ही चला रहे हो, कोई performance pressure देने वाला है नहीं. IPO के बाद, you've got, the good thing is got equity capital on tap. You've got, if you want to acquire businesses, you've got your own shares to pay with as currency. Visibility आपको by default मिलती है, and obviously visibility के साथ scrutiny भी मिलती है. And liquidity to shareholders. You can give dividends, you can reward your shareholders, your company will grow, your shareholders will grow with you. The cons of being a pre-IPO company, आपके पास capital के लिए शायद कमी होती है. You have to go and रगड़ो in front of banks for loans, etc. And you have very limited brand equity per se outside of the hometown. आप अगर राजकोट में हो और एक कंपनी हो, आपको राजकोट में सबको जानता है, लेकिन आपको शायद कोलकाता या भुवनेश्वर में कोई जानता नहीं है. IPO के बाद this changes dramatically, and your recognition improves, as does the scrutiny, and your share price is the single barometer. That one number is the one you keep coming back to as the dictator of all of this. The point is that the IPO is really the point at which you get to set all of these things in the right context, because it is the largest brand building exercise a company can undertake, especially in the world of today, and which is why PR and Corpcom becomes an important stakeholder or an owner of this process. And the single most important takeaway from this session, if I were to leave you with, is to prepare for an IPO in advance. When you are going for an IPO, there are several challenges that you will face, but the most important one is that there are regulatory restrictions on PR and communications. You can only communicate from your offer documents. You cannot give forward-looking statements, and so on and so forth. We'll get to that in a bit. But the idea is that if you start preparing in sowing season, you plow the ground, you lay down some fertilizer, you prepare the ground ahead of the sowing so that you get a good crop later. This is what it means to start preparing early. Because the IPOs are only going to happen once, ideally. The idea would be to bring forth the full strength of your brand. Promoter कितने साल से धंधा चला रहा है, promoter industry में सबको जानता है, ये process ये company सबसे ज़्यादा अच्छा करती है. Some of these things are not captured fully in the offer documentation, and even if they are, tell me honestly, how many of you have ever read a DRHP cover to cover? Almost none. The point is that these stories need to be brought out judiciously, because bankers will read it, institutional investors will read it, no Tom, Dick and Harry on the street will read it. And that is your job as communicators. And it prepares the company better for life as a listed entity and maximizes value for all shareholders. So that is the pro or the benefit of starting in advance. And if you don't, your IPO, and again, it could be poorly received, maybe not priced as well as you want to. It may drop after listing day. You may have to do a lot of firefighting and crisis management, which is unnecessary as bandwidth, opportunity cost. And finally, it's just not realizing the full value of the brand. The valuation doesn't come through in like it should. So IPOs as an opportunity for the PR and Corpcom professional, let me give you another lens. Institutional investors in India today, there are several. There are mutual funds, insurance companies, and they participate in IPOs heavily. They use AI heavily. They are all up to speed. Individual investors, in fact, have grown even more. 3.5 crore accounts versus 18 or 20 crores today. Every IPO gets 20 lakh applications on average, and each and every detail is scrutinized, and you'll see that play out in social media day in, day out. And the regulator today is hawkish, cautious, wants to protect the retail investor. So as the professional that we are today in this room, we have to seek to get the best story of the company out there in a judicious, controlled, calibrated manner. The market today is great for PR and comms professionals because it's more receptive to new business models. 4 years ago, nobody would have understood the Zomato business model. Today, people are a little more receptive. Same with the Mama Earth, same with the Lenskart, same with the boat, many others. So the idea for the comms professional, IPO or even maybe no IPO, is to build out what we call an investor brand. And this differs from the typical consumer brand or maybe even the corporate brand in a certain way. In a consumer brand, you represent the benefits or the promise of your, if you're a food product, your taste, your consistency, or your flavor, or whatever they are. Corporate brand, you represent your integrity, your trust. Investor brand, you represent the promise of performance, of growth, of dividends, of returns on capital employed, of profit margins. So this building of the investor brand becomes important. And I've had the pleasure of doing this as a banker for 5 or 6 years. I've been doing that at Factors with Mr. Behel's blessings for some 5 years now. And hence the lens on what an investor brand is. One fundamental equation today. Your equity value is narrative into numbers. That's the simplest breakdown of equity value I can give you. Your numbers represent your earnings or your sales or the actual business performance, and your promise represents the PE multiple or the sales multiple, the EV to EBITDA multiple. That promise into performance is the valuation. And here, very simply, you can break down your company into 4 quadrants. As you can see, the bottom left is typical company जिसका धंधा भी ठीक से नहीं चल रहा है, story भी ठीक नहीं है. So it has to start from scratch. Up top, there is unproven potential. Story बहुत बढ़िया, लेकिन number दिख नहीं रहा है अब तक. Unproven potential. There are steady state companies that have immensely great cash flows, lovely profit margins, but life में क्या कर रहे हैं पता नहीं, strategy clear नहीं है. So they are unrealized valuation. And then in the sweet spot, you've got the story playing out, you've got the numbers playing out. And hence the multiplication of 2 increasing factors is always going to be increasing even more. And that as communicators, in your hands is the narrative. The numbers the business will take care of. The narrative is in your hands. And a good example that I like to give. Numbers without narrative is like the Mahabharata without Maharshi Vedvyas. It's just a bunch of dudes fighting in Uttar Pradesh. Nobody knows anything about it. Vedvyas ne Mahabharata likhi, isliye it became an epic that we tell generations onwards to all our subsequent children and grandchildren. For instance, a company does 100 crores of revenue, 20 crores of profit, 20% profit margin, 30 ka multiple. On its own, in a vacuum, it makes no sense. But once you put a narrative to it, if it does 20% margin in an industry that does 30%, then it's an industry laggard. It should get 20x. If it does 20% in an industry that does 15%, then it's a leader, get 34x. Entire industry does minus 5%, then it is a game breaker. It gets 50x. This positioning is something that you all are in control of. And this is what you have to convey to the market. If it does 20% after doing 14, 16, 18, that means it's a consistent performer. That means it should get a premium. If it does 20% after doing minus 10%, then it's a turnaround artist, and so on and so forth. The narrative dictates the valuation. And hence, the investor brand is again a multiplication. A brand is a promise, which is a relatively simple definition of a brand. The investor brand is a promise of performance conveyed through your equity story. In your equity story, your equity story is the vehicle through which your brand goes to market, and your DRHP is the most complicated possible telling of this equity story. It is filled with legal jargon. There is a lot of stuff there that is not necessarily needed for a pure representation of the business. There is a lot of disclaimers. There's a lot of risk factors. It's very legally sound, but it's not very interesting reading. It's very difficult for somebody, layperson on the street, to get some really good insights about the company's business and operating model. So what we typically like to do, and this is straight from our playbook brought to you, is to try and break down the messages of the offer document or any kind of investor presentation that you see, any kind of investor collateral, break it down into these simple factors that an investor can understand. कौन से मार्केट में माल बेचता है, वो मार्केट बड़ा है क्या? उस मार्केट में और कौन माल बेचता है, वो अच्छा बेचता है क्या? तुम कौन से माल में क्या माल पे प्रोडक्ट बेचता है? Are you being able to sell it at a premium? Do you have to discount your product substantially? Is your product better than all the others? Is your distribution better than all the others? These are all very, very simple questions with very simple answers. The point is that every business model can be broken down into 10, 15 simple points that can be conveyed to the layperson through this equity story. And there are three very simple pillars. TAM, मतलब target addressable market. मंडी कितना बड़ा है? In that TAM, deep moat. उस मंडी में तुम्हारा प्रोडक्ट कितना अच्छा है या तुम्हारा धंधा कितना अच्छा है. And with that, माल बनाने वाले तुम हो कौन? तुम कितने साल से माल बना रहे हो? तुम्हारा experience क्या है, credibility क्या है. In the same possible manner and articulation, this is the sum and substance of what the market needs to understand if you have to get the right valuation. And that, again, to reiterate, is the job of the PR and comms person. And opportunity there, if you start early. This is the typical curve of what an IPO looks like. It starts slow, then in the end there's a IPO launch, price band, road show, and sudden spike, and it dies down all afterwards. If you start a little early, just a little early, with some consistent communication, you get a higher base to work from. And that line that you're going suddenly goes into the atmosphere. Better brand, better valuation, better cost of capital. That was the opportunities. That looks great. There are challenges, and the challenges are with regulatory restrictions. This is a reproduction of SEBI's restrictions on capital market bound companies. There's a whole schedule, ICDR Schedule 9, that explicitly talks about this. But the idea, and I'll give you the sum and substance of it in these 4-5 points, is to not venture outside the documents, to not be misleading, manipulative, be truthful, fair, and complete. What does that mean? You can't say anything selectively good about yourself. You can't say, I'm a market. You put a disclaimer there that I have filed a DRHP with SEBI. There are risk factors in it. Please read the offer document carefully before investing, something to that effect. So the idea is that, and SEBI's stance is very clear. SEBI does not want the retail investors getting swindled, which is absolutely correct. So as communicators, how do we stay on the right side of the law in letter and spirit, but do justice to our employees or our clients or our brand or our business? And today, the regulator, incidentally, is equipped with tracking software, real-time monitoring, AI tools, near real-time queries on anything that is perceived to be a plug or like a overtly positive, news piece. And we face these queries day in, day out, and which is why we are absolutely attuned with the regulations. And which is why the biggest challenge that you will face is that if you start doing your IPO communications when your DRHP is filed, you're going to run into a slew of challenges, which will come from the fact that everybody is very conservative. जितना जरूरी है उतना ही करना है. Media interview की जरूरत है क्या? नहीं है तो नहीं करते हैं. So that is going to be the pushback that you get, which is why the simplest thing to do to bypass this problem is to start early. You can do your communications early on at a very high pace, at a very good pace. The closer you get to your IPO, your compliance starts kicking in. And after a while, your communications is going to become a very flat, stagnant, steady state, which is why the net of this is if you start when your DRHP is filed, you're way too late. If you start when your BLMs are appointed, which is your investment bankers, you're too late. If you start 6 months before, you have just enough time. And if you start 12 to 18 months before the BRLMs are appointed, you're well placed because you've had that time to build out the brand in its full glory before the communication restrictions set in. These are some challenges that we typically see. These are the more fun challenges. Red flags, perception risks, and in every IPO, there is some or the other issue, crisis, heartache. Somebody has some problem. Somebody will come to your company suddenly ki अरे मेरे को 15 साल पहले पैसा नहीं दिया था. All of these people come to surface just during the IPO. And these risks come in several forms and flavors. Some come from within your own company. Again, your charter here as comms professionals, as PR professionals, is to be a diagnostician of your own firm before the market diagnoses for you. For instance, your visionary CEO can also become a loose cannon and just shoot their mouth in the media. Group synergies that you see कि हमारा कंपनी केमिकल भी बनाता है, API भी बनाता है, फॉर्मुलेशन भी बनाता है, मार्केट में भी बेचता है, लेकिन रिलेटेड पार्टी ट्रांजैक्शन है उसका क्या? Aggressive goals can also become a credibility gap कि अच्छा वैल्यूएशन के लिए गोल सेट किया लेकिन वो मीट नहीं किया, बाद में मार्केट वैल्यूएशन नहीं देगा. बहुत बढ़िया क्लाइंट है, but that also represents a concentration risk कि आपका तेरा कितना 30% business coming from one client. That's a big risk. If you're data centric or if you're tech driven, inherently means you're a data breach candidate. Every data driven company has a data breach. Rahul maybe can go into that later. And if in the face of all this, as some comms professionals tend to keep their CXOs exposed to the media at all time, transparent, accessible, very media friendly, you can also get overexposed. So there is no solution to all of this that I have as of today, except that You have to be prepared. You have to be prepared. You have to be prepared. You have to know your own company. You have to know your own business. अगर आपका कोई critical supplier है जहां से risk आ सकता है, you as comms people should know that. If you have a social media handle that keeps getting online flags कि तुम्हारा product घटिया है, you should flag it off and put an ORM in place. So that diagnosis has to come from you internally before somebody else does it for you. And these are just some examples of cases where we've seen, and again, these are just IPOs that I personally have had the fortune to manage. This happens every day in every IPO in every kind of manner imaginable. Promoter fought with somebody on Twitter in the IPO. A client vendor defaulted. Media did something because somebody told them to do something. Investor wanted to say something, company didn't want them to say it, so we have to arbitrate. There was one very funny incident where UPI payments got dilly-dallied for a while because Yes Bank went into moratorium back in 2020, where nobody can do anything about. Google footprint. If your company has a past litigation or case or ED raid, income tax issue, and then suddenly when investor doing his AI searches, they suddenly find it and they come and ask you, ये क्या है? ये क्यों नहीं बताया? ये document में क्यों नहीं है? All of those risks climb out of the woodwork, and you have to have either a prepared response or some kind of strategy to actually get around those. ESG is becoming a big theme today. Even something like why aren't your workers taken adequate care of? If you're operating a plant, why do half your people don't have hard helmets? All of these questions we've actually seen appear when investors do their diligence calls. When media is taken for site visits, they do pick up on it as well. And the most fundamental problem, poorly understood business, which leads to mixed and negative reviews. And you all know and have seen this happen. The only way to circumvent this is to start early, meet the right people, meet the right media, explain the business to them, make sure they're on the same page as you, and then lay that groundwork for a successful IPO. And final thoughts to just echo this entire theme of starting early: sweat in peace so that you don't bleed in the war. Because the cost of absence is higher than the price of presence. Thank you. I'll hand over to Rahul so that he can take his piece on misinformation.
I think it's one of the most difficult parts to come to Gujarat and explain share market. But what is even more difficult now is to identify whether something is real or not online. So, I'll try to sort of help you with that. How many of you actually gone out and fact checked anything before sharing, especially when you get messages on WhatsApp? Can I see a show of hands? That's like, I think, less than 5% of the audience. So, the first thing to identify fake news is to fact check. So I'd recommend everyone to pause and verify and then share. Because truth always travels slowly, but fake news travels at 5G. So, this is a wonderful meme. I thought I can show it to you how the public is always attracted to viral fake news, but they wouldn't go and check verified news. So how many of people would go to a ashtak.com versus actually you shouldn't go to Ashtak because they killed Dharmendra before he actually died. But how many of you actually would have verified something coming from that kind of a source and then maybe not posted me first condolence messages on Facebook? So AI is one of the reasons, because it has completely erased the cost of creating misinformation. You don't need to be an editor, you don't need fancy devices. You can go to your chat GPT and create an image on Nano Banana and it'll look as real as this room. My lips are saying something, but you could feed in something else. It's as simple as that. One convincing deep fake can rewrite an entire narrative in minutes. We've seen that. Some of you would have seen Obama coming and asking you to invest in a certain chop shop in Ahmedabad. So that it is possible, and trust isn't just fragile. Nowadays it is a disadvantage and a competitive advantage, because who do you trust more? It could be an influencer who's peddling fake news, but it could also be a brand who's trying to tell you what is real and what is not. So, I give you an example of the fake Pentagon explosion image that, moved the entire US stock market for 2 days and completely crashed the market. So, AI being a weapon is also a shield. Like most of the things in life, it is a double-edged sword. Uh, the same tech that spreads misinformation can also expose it. So if somebody makes a deep fake using AI, you can use AI to check whether it is a deep fake or a real video. Uh, Gen AI creates very, very realistic fakes. So, as AI advances, we'll find out ways through AI to detect what is fake and not. There are patterns, there are definitive suggestions, and obviously fact checking that can help you understand whether something is real or fake. And then obviously there is Meta and Twitter and everyone have started sort of regulate creation of AI. So AI tools can now flag deep fakes. Meta, Instagram identifies what is AI and not on its own. So does Twitter now. Again, a social forwarding reality check. How many times have you forwarded something just after reading a headline and not reading the entire story? Show of hands, please. Yeah. So yeah, it's always suggested you read the whole thing. Don't share anything based on a headline or a very clickbaity, attractive headline. WhatsApp rumors in India is one of the biggest reason. You've seen all the elections across the country, especially some of it started in your state back in 2012. Uh, I mean, I've given an example, which was the first incident of WhatsApp forwarding went ahead and created rumors that led to mob incidents. Uh, it is a platform problem also. Platforms reward velocity, they don't reward accuracy. It's your job to figure out what is accurate and what is not. Most misinformation goes viral because people don't actually go on and check and fact check or verify. I mean, there's flood outside my door, but no, you won't go outside to check whether it's raining or not. So transparency is always greater than spin. Proof is greater than promises. Uh, Trust is basically earned. It's not viral. I found this very interesting, especially for communication experts like us. Generally, what we do is we are not transparent with our communication. We are very reactive. We have reactive denial as a instinct to tell, "Arey, kuch nahi hua hai, sab theek hai." That's the first instinct. But I think for building trust, you can't go out and shout loud. You have to build it by showing your receipts. Real-time verification will build long-term credibility. Institutions that are known to show process and proof win the trust war. People who are transparent in their numbers, people who are transparent about their pressures, their wins, their losses, they have more trust. And you've seen that recently with a lot of startups, and like Gaurav mentioned on the new age startups, because they build the brand so transparently from the ground up. Their stories, the products. The biggest selling point for Mama Earth for its entirety was they are made safe product. They're certified. What are they doing? They're planting trees. They're sort of neutralizing their carbon footprint. Every time you say such things, and you giving proofs for that, you're giving those receipts, people trust you more. And it's not okay to be stuck in a firestorm and say that everything would be all right. It's always better to tell them that we have a plan, we're trying to fix this, we know there is a situation, and we'll handle it. Please be patient. So brand that use open dashboards during crisis or show real-time facts instead of just bland PR statements, which are mostly AI generated as well, it's better, and people trust them more. I would like you to see this video. It'll help you sort of identify because we were speaking about deep fakes a while back.
Some AI-generated deepfakes are getting so good it can be near impossible to tell what's real and what's not.
What if I were to tell you that I'm not even a human being? Would you believe me?
Many deepfakes, like these face swaps, are obvious and silly. But others are more harmful, like the pornographic image of Taylor Swift that recently went viral. Over 90% of deepfakes are non-consensual sexual images of women. And it's not just celebrities being targeted, but also regular teenage girls. Creating convincing deepfakes can now be done quickly and easily by anyone and about anyone.
People really can't tell. They look at them and they think they can. And I think we have to be really careful about trying to give people ideas that they can spot this.
The tells of yesterday's deepfakes, like an extra finger on a hand, a strange blink, or a glitch, aren't really there anymore because the tools just keep improving. Deepfakes are made using a type of artificial intelligence called deep learning. These AI programs are trained using huge amounts of data, including photos or videos. Then they use complex algorithms to make up a new photo or video. We're going to talk about 3 categories of tools being created to prevent or identify deepfakes. One embeds markers to indicate if the content is
It's
real or
important
fake.
to know how to do
Another
it.
spots deepfakes out in the wild. And the last to prevent them from being made in the first place. First, let's talk about watermarks. These are like an invisible stamp that's embedded in an AI-generated photo or video.
Now, when you know how to create it, it automatically teaches you what can be real and what can be fake. So it's very important to learn AI first to understand how to deal with it. So these tools, I mean, I'd recommend everyone to start using Nano Banana, but don't pass it on as real things. But
As it's being
always never rely on your eyes only. Always use fact checking. Always use tools. I mean, at Ad Factors, we spend a large part of our media budget, our digital budgets on getting these tools to verify facts. Like Sir mentioned, we have our own fact checkers, we have legal teams. We make sure that everything that goes through us is fact checked multiple times manually. So marrying the man and machine and making sure that we're not, party to spreading fake news, and make sure that if for some brands, if somebody's third parties are trying to create fake news or deep fakes, we try to tackle them as well.
Some AI.
Now, then the viral cycle. Can't breathe. Let's
There's
watch a
a quote
video.
usually attributed to the writer Mark Twain that goes, "A lie can travel halfway around the world while the truth is putting on its shoes." Funny thing about that, there's reason to doubt that Mark Twain ever said this at all, thus ironically proving the point. And today the quote, whoever said it, is truer than ever before. In previous decades, most media with global reach consisted of several major newspapers and networks which had the resources to gather information directly. Outlets like Reuters and the Associated Press that aggregate or re-report stories were relatively rare compared to today. The speed with which information spreads now has created the ideal conditions for a phenomenon known as circular reporting. This is when publication A publishes misinformation, publication B reprints it, and publication A then cites B as the source for the information. It's also considered a form of circular reporting when multiple publications report on the same initial piece of false information, which then appears
case
to
in
another
point is the
author
Dharmendra
as having
death.
been verified by multiple sources. For instance, the 1998 publication of a single pseudoscientific paper arguing that routine vaccination of children causes autism inspired an entire anti-vaccination movement, despite the fact that the original paper has repeatedly been discredited by the scientific community. Deliberately unvaccinated children are now contracting contagious diseases that had been virtually eradicated in the United States, with some infections proving fatal. In a slightly less dire example, satirical articles that are formatted to resemble real ones can also be picked up by outlets not in on the joke. For example, a joke article in the reputable British Medical Journal entitled "Energy Expenditure in Adolescents Playing New Generation Computer Games" has been referenced in serious science publications over 400 times. User-generated content such as wikis are also a common contributor to circular reporting. As more writers come to rely on such pages for quick information, an unverified fact in a wiki page can make its
Confirmation
way
bias
into a
always
published
aids
article
in
that may
supporting
later
fake
be
news.
added as a citation for the very same wiki information, making it much harder to debunk. Recent advances in communication technology have had immeasurable benefits in breaking down the barriers between information and people. But our desire for quick answers may overpower the desire to be certain of their validity. And when this bias can be multiplied by billions of people around the world nearly instantaneously, more caution is in order. Avoiding sensationalist media, searching for criticisms of suspicious information, and tracing the original source of a report can help slow down a lie, giving the truth more time to put on its shoes.
So algorithms will always reward engagement, and engagement will stop only when you fact check. So suddenly, if you see certain parts of a film going trending or going viral all in one day, never trust that it is happening on its own. There is someone behind the scene who's creating volumes of a certain thing to create a confirmation bias that this is popular, and it'll help you buy that movie ticket and go. I mean, case in point, Durandar. If you see a certain scene, if you see excessive discussion about a popular actor and how brilliant he is, it is because someone behind the scene is creating packages and packages of content, putting it online, and making sure that at least 30 to 40% of the people who are interested, remotely interested in that person, would see that content, and that will obviously initiate your desire to watch that movie. So always fact check.
There's a quote usually
Again, in a crisis, transparency isn't a strategy, it's your only survival mechanism. When you are talking about what is happening with you, with the people, they can relate to you, they can be empathetic about you. Case in point, again, Indigo, for instance. The chairman is coming out and giving recorded speeches today. If it would have happened while the crisis was happening, people would have realized that there is an issue, and they are empathetic about it. They're considering our problems, and not as an aftermath. So when you do it as an aftermath, then it looks like, I mean, a statement like, we understand your problem. If you understood your problem, why were you not there when we were facing those problems? So it's always better to have live dashboards, monitor everything 24/7, speak to the people while an issue is. The aftermath is just cleanup, and people understand cleanups. People know that you can trust someone. I mean, if you're getting five superstars to write tweets about you 4 days after the incident has happened, I mean, all of you would understand, and especially from the communication angle, maybe your bosses would be happy that something has happened, because you'll just go and show them what you made them publish, made the celebrities publish. But people in mass, people in general, would call out call you out, and won't trust you. So always be transparent. Bring a transparency protocol and communication, and they'll help identify all issues. So again, whether it is deep fake, whether it is real stories, always be transparent, always fact check, always verify before sharing. I think I am pretty much done. Thank you very much.
We have around 10 minutes time for questions. So please raise your hand, and request you to ask questions to the point. Okay. Anyone start? No? Yeah. Nikhilesh. Oh, Nikhilesh. Mic. Vicky.
So when we talk as a communication professional, are we supposed to give out all the things and, for that transparency thing?
You don't need to give everything, but you need to sort of give out something. You need to tell people, especially when they're going over. I mean, it's as simple as telling them that maybe the flights won't take off. So check before you leave from your houses. It's not giving out any information or protocols. You're just telling people to be careful. That is also transparency. If people are coming to the airport and you're not letting them know there could be a delay, that's a problem. So transparency doesn't mean you have to open your books and tell them, okay, we're not going to hire anyone till the government agrees to us. It is about avoiding or basically not creating a situation which becomes a crisis, not just for you, but for your passengers as well.
I think in our long years of experience, we have managed more crises than any other firm or any other company in this country. Transparency in general helps. And earlier on, you're out with the factual position and admit, even if you have done something wrong, there's always a tussle between the public relations person and the lawyer. The lawyer will say, never admit it, that you are at fault. But we have seen again and again that when the company is empathetic, accepts the problem and says, well, there is a problem, we have erred, we even apologize, and we are trying to fix this as fast as we can, and the learnings that we have from this incident will incorporate in our behavior so that it never happens again. That goes much farther than denying something or delaying something, which finally eventually will come out and bite you. In general, transparency helps.
Yeah. 1 minute, Parth.
So my question is a bit afraid to the topic here today. So this influencer economy, or you can say the content creators are taking over the field right now. So we as a PR domain, how we are taking, what would be your thoughts on that?
The influencer as a legitimate medium today. If you take all the business newspapers, if you go by circulation, all the business newspapers and all the business magazines together won't have a circulation of more than 1 million. That's it. If you go to a single person called Rachna Ranade, who operates mostly out of her kitchen in Pune, she has a subscriber base of 4.5 million people. And therefore, you cannot ignore her either. You cannot say, my story will only go to the Economic Times, because one, Economic Times is Economic Times, and it will have its own rules and its own guidelines on what to carry and how to carry, in what manner to carry it. So I think the influencer ecosystem is will become an important player in this whole thing. And the earlier we recognize them, the better of it. Well, the problem comes because when influence is completely paid, then the trust in that also goes down. So that problem is there. But can we treat the good influencers as legitimate channels of distributing a message or communicating a message with their own endorsement or simply carrying it? I think it is time to examine them with an open mind, and of course use your discretion, use your judgment. But I think that would be a good step to do.
Kashyap bhai.
Namaskar.
नमस्कार सर, ट्रांसपेरेंसी की बात हुई, अच्छी चीज है, विदाउट एनी पॉलिटिकल बायस। एक चीज है कि जो रेक्टिफिकेशन है उनको ट्रांसपेरेंसी में कन्वर्ट करके वो एक पीआर सक्सेस और मार्केट सक्सेस के रूप में देखना, तो उसमें जनता का क्या मतलब कसूर हो जाता है या कुछ हो जाता है? फॉर एग्जांपल जीएसटी का जो मतलब बदलाव किया, उसमें जनता ने जो पैसा गंवाना था गंवा दिया, और बाद में जो रेक्टिफिकेशन था उनको एक इनिशिएटिव के तरीके से ट्रांसपेरेंसी के साथ प्रयोग किया और पूरी जो है मार्केट जो है उसको लेके उनकी एडवर्टाइजमेंट हुई, सब कुछ हुआ। तो ये ट्रांसपेरेंसी कहा जाए, रेक्टिफिकेशन कहा जाए, या रेक्टिफिकेशन कन्वर्टेड इनटू ट्रांसपेरेंसी एंड प्रोजेक्टेड एज ए बेस्ट पीआर?
I think there is a word called advocacy for change. अगर आप कुछ चीज करना चाहते हैं which is going to impact any stakeholder, whether वो आपका employee है या customer है, I am going to suddenly increase the price. Correct? A bank would come up and say, my minimum deposit is going to be from tomorrow 1 lakh rupees. There is going to be a backlash. But if the bank has done some advance effort in creating a general understanding of why that is important or why it is critical or why it is doing it, then the post-fact effort can be reduced. The change advocacy presented properly with transparency can solve a lot of problems which come later on. Of course, if it is not done and you have done something and there's a backlash and then you explain it and set it right, it's a good thing to do. But some of these things, any corporation, because change is a permanent part of the new paradigm. ऐसी कोई भी कंपनी नहीं है जो आज, या कोई गवर्नमेंट नहीं है, या कोई भी इंस्टीट्यूशन नहीं है जो कुछ चेंज नहीं कर रहा है. Any change that is happening is challenging the status quo. Any change is happening is impacting somebody or the other and creates friction. So if you explain the reason for the change, why it is being done, how it will be done in advance, even without necessarily giving the details, sometimes you may not be able to give all the details, but you create a general narrative about a need to change something in a particular direction, that will be helpful. But after it is done, you have to continue the communication effort so that people are able to see it exactly the way it should be seen. Thank you.
Yeah, Hiral.
Good evening, sir. So we see Deepika Padukone as a...
Closer to the mic, please.
So we see Deepika Padukone... I'm taking the Parth's question further about the influencer marketing space. That we see Deepika Padukone as a Louis Vuitton ambassador, as a Hotel Hilton ambassador. But when she launches her own brand, it's now not making profits. So what does it say about influencer marketing?
Did you get the question? Or
I mean, it also depends on the product, right? Louis Vuitton is not dependent on Deepika Padukone alone, but Deepika's product is only dependent on her. Yes, so that's why it survives a while, and that's why she's able to launch. If you had to launch your own product to that scale, you won't be able to do it without a Deepika Padukone, but Deepika Padukone can do it herself. So essentially, influencers can only influence, they cannot go and sell the products. So that also clarifies that if you have to create noise and you have to create basically advocacy for certain things, that is possible through influencers. But if you have to create a sale and get someone to go to a point of purchase, the product needs to be great as well. So like Gaurav suggested, if you start talking about the product early on, if you start talking about the benefits of the product, the value add from the products, then you can sell the product through the influence created by that influencer. But if you, just go out and say, okay, this influencer is using my product, and then there's no value to it. I mean, you would have seen the complaints that product saw, right? About being very oily, not being very sort of price conscious from the market. Those were the reason it didn't work. But people attempted to try that product. Similar example, when Food Farmer launched his own protein powder, everybody went ahead and sold it. And he's been so transparent. Every week he tells you how much product he sold, at what price, who's manufacturing it. He's showing you how it is made. So both, I mean, again, Kusha Kapila launched her brand, sold out within a day. So the product needs to match the influence. I hope that helps.
It's you may consider it to be a query or even an opinion. We all are being a lot focused on fake news in general. And I believe that a lot of people are now developing an acquaintance or an understanding about fake news. there is a very major phenomena which is going on. It's nothing new, but it's like more on the boosters. So when you say trust versus fake news, we see that a lot of content, especially big banner films, etc., begins with inspired by true events and creative liberty. Now, practically, when you say inspired by true events, what is an inspired by and true events? Either something is based on true events, or something is a biopic, right? Or a docudrama, right? So when you say inspired by true events and creative liberty, so that basically means that inspired by true events is used to build a trust, which is actually psychometrically playing. So, so when you talk about trust versus fake news, is a big question going around, that the liberty with which inspired by true events and creative liberty is going on. So what would be the take on that?
Read the book about the actual event and don't believe the film. So I agree.
But this is how narratives are created by inspired or interested parties. I'm not talking about which side, this side or that side, but popular films or popular media are a great way to create or support or distort things in a way that suit you. So you have to, the reader has to use his discretion or her discretion to understand, and as Rahul said, again verify it.
Any other questions?
Hi.
Yeah.
Can I? This is to Madan. You know, the roles, as you rightly said, that the roles of many professionals are changing rapidly. How do you see the role of PR changing or assuming a larger scope in the near future? How will it change? I mean, the way will change, the medium, the the style of influencing will change. But what will be the role? How will the role change? Do you see anything in that?
Very difficult question, sir. किसी को भी answer पता नहीं है, because if you had asked on 29th of October or 30th of October 2022, how is it going to roll? Nobody would have been able to say that, because ChatGPT was launched on 30th November 2022 and it changed everything. Okay. 15 days ago, something else came up and it changed everything. Trump has created his own version of how truth is communicated and distorted 100 times without having to pay any penalty for it. So the role of the communicators will still evolve in a significant way, and that is to help the organization deal with all the challenges that are coming. The risk environment in general has exploded exponentially, and the secret superpower of the communication professional is to identify the risk in advance and tell, अगर हम इसको नहीं ध्यान देते तो ये अपने को it is going to cost us. So more and more, and if I were to recommend one simple thing to every person, that risk and crisis and issues and trust are all very closely related things. Therefore, learn risk management quickly. Every single board of directors will have a risk register in your own company. वो risk register में क्या लिखा है and how it will, if it goes wrong, what can go wrong, what can go wrong tomorrow, it should be a continuous thing. And if you help your organization in that one area to be better prepared, first of all to preempt it, and that brings me to a definition of public relations, which I think is again becoming very important. That definition is public relations or good reputation is 90% behavior and 10% communications. If my behavior is not good as a corporation to my stakeholders, to my customers or employees, or मैं कितना भी चूना लगा दूं सफेद, it is not going to work. It's greenwashing. So good behavior so the corporate communication professional in the future will have to be a conscience keeper of the organization on the one hand, and a conflicting role of the advocate of the organization on the other hand. Both will have to coexist and help the company in managing behavior in such a way that it doesn't land into trouble and it doesn't have trust or reputational challenges, because the reputation price is very, very heavy. A loss of reputation can have significant impact, and organization can take a very long time to recover from it. So getting into a consulting mode where you are able to in advance alert your managements, alert your companies to the risks that they are dealing with, preparing for the risks, managing those risks is very important. But another contemporary thing is, for example, reputation is being discovered by what is called now as large language models. The routine search or the regular search is getting diminished in importance. How does your organization get discovered on ChatGPT or Grok or 100 other new models that will come is a very important tool. If you can start thinking and planning that, well, this is how my organization must be discovered, and I'm doing conscious effort through good public relations to see that it discovers its discovery, whether by a potential employee or by a potential investor or by a customer, very closely matches to reality, then you would have done a good job. These are some of the dimensions in which the communication function must evolve.
Okay, one last question. Bhargav?
Yes, sir. We are discussing IPOs, and here is a one case of using
Mike, speak.
false data. This is by Lenskart.
Be close to the IPO. Mike, please. Mike, closer to the...
Closer.
Yes, sir. So we are discussing IPOs, and here is a one case of using false data. So this is again a forward message by one very good big investor. Lenskart claimed IY market size 75 crore during its IPO conferences and news releases, and claimed that it would be 1.5 lakh crore by 2030. Post IPO, Titan held its con call, in which Titan mentioned that IY market size is 30k crore right now, and it would be 45 crore K by 2030. So my question is, जो लोग retailers लोग data पढ़ के IPO में trap हुए, don't you think agency should again independently cross check the datas given to them by the clients and like that?
No, I think the data was not created by the agency. The data was already there. That data was created by a red seer or a research agency that did that research and estimated it to be. Now, I'm a slightly interested party because both Titan and Lenskart are my clients. So I have some limitations in commenting on it. But let me make a point. If you go to do a search on what is the size of the Indian PR industry, you will get an assessment that the size is 3,300 crores. As stated by PRCAI, which is the Public Relations Consultant Association of India, and it said 10% growth ho gaya पिछले साल से, so from 3,000 gone to 3,300 crores. If you ask me, what is the size of the Indian PR industry potentially in the next 3 to 5 years, I would say 30,000 crores. Now, you will again challenge because ये कैसे आया था? I will have my own logic and my own assumptions. So sometimes both are right from their standpoint, and both look at the market and the way its potential is, and how they will, and you cannot say this is right or that is right. You have to use your discretion on how to believe that. Who would have thought Zomato will be a $30 billion company just by distributing food?
Sir, we'll just close the session. Vicky and Santoshji, if you can present a memo on behalf of PRSI. Shailesh, after that from AMA. Shailesh ji, if you can present on behalf of AMA. Gaurav. So, we'll close the session. We've had a very great time in session with Madan sir and his two teammates. We are running short of time. We would have liked another hour with Madan sir, but he has to catch a flight. So we'll take a group photo first, then he will have to leave.